Kirtana Mataji, should we start?
Yes, ma'am. Okay, so should we start the recording?
Yeah.
Okay, Hare Krishna, everybody. Welcome to Bhakti Sangha Group, where we are doing this Bhagavad Gita as it is, 18 chapters in 18 weeks. So right now, today, we are in the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So thank you, each and every one of you, for your consistent presence on this call. And today we are really fortunate to have Her Grace Preethi Vilasini Mataji for facilitating this chapter with us. So over to you, Mataji. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Kirtana Sundari Mataji. And thanks to everyone for joining us consistently. If at all you lose me, I mean, if my audio gets, put off, let me know so that I can reconnect. I could have issues today. So if there is an issue, immediately let me know. Okay, so we're continuing with our Bhagavad Gita series, 18 chapters in 18 weeks. And we are in the 15th chapter today. So before we go ahead, we'll start off with our invocation prayers for auspiciousness. Om Ajnanatimidandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Nitinamane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschayata Deshatharini Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So before entering chapter 15, as we have always been doing, we'll have a quick overview of chapter 14. So our usual question, get ready to type. What was the acronym for chapter 14? Yes, trap. Yes, it was about the three modes of material nature, right? That is the subject matter of chapter 14. So what do the three modes of material nature do to us? They trap us, right? So T-R-A-P, three modes. So before discussing the three modes of material nature, Krishna said that he would be revealing the supreme knowledge. Why is it the supreme knowledge? Because knowing this and understanding the three modes of material nature, one can attain freedom from repeated birth and death. And then he started discussing about the bondage by the different modes. He first defined the three modes of material nature, which is goodness, passion, and ignorance. And then he explained to us how even by goodness, one can get trapped because one derives a sense of happiness and contentment. So to be here in this material world, and therefore goodness can also trap a person. Then obviously passion can also trap a person in this material world because one gets very entangled in performing fruitive activity because he's in the mode of passion. And then by madness, if one is in the mode of ignorance, he gets trapped. So we saw how one gets bonded into this material world by the three modes of material nature. And then we saw that among these three modes, there is a constant race for prominence. So be it throughout the day or be it within the same person, the three modes of material nature keep recurring over and over. And there is a race between these three modes to see who is more prominent. And then we saw that goodness illuminates, right? And it brings you to the platform of knowledge. Passion leads to uncontrollable desires, because if you're very passionate, you're very, very you have all these desires, constant desires that make you angry and that make you very passionate about things. So that is the mode of passion. There is, it keeps you bound here in this material world. And then you have ignorance, which is actually darkness and illusion. So after talking about the three modes and their race for prominence, we saw how there is action in these three modes, the destination that one may attain when he is in any of these modes, the result one derives, the immediate effects of these three modes, and the direction one heads towards in these three modes of material nature. And then finally, we saw the pure life formula. So the symptoms, behavior, and the process of pure life was discussed, and how one can actually transcend these three modes of material nature was further discussed. So towards the end of the chapter, what did we learn? The process of transcending these three modes of material nature, which is a big trap for us, is by taking up devotional service. So that is what was told towards the end of the chapter, by surrendering. That was the word used. So you have to surrender to the Lord who's beyond the three modes of material nature, because only the person who's above the three modes of material nature can actually take you out of this bondage. So therefore, the only way to get out is to surrender. And the easiest formula is by doing devotional service. Okay, so that's how we ended chapter 14. So now we are entering chapter 15, very interesting topic name. It is called Purushottama Yoga. So who's Purushottama? Purushottama is the Supreme Lord, right? So we are going to see about how to link with that Supreme Lord. So therefore, this chapter in English is called as the Yoga of the Supreme Person. So that is the English name. And let's see the connection from chapter 14 to chapter 15. So when we just quickly went through the summary of chapter 14, we saw that bhakti can help us transcend the three modes of material nature. So for us to attain some sort of an attachment to do devotional service and to transcend these modes of material nature and perform this devotional service with great enthusiasm, what we need to do is we need to detach from this material world, right? So to attach to something higher, first you have to detach from something lower, right? So therefore, this chapter, it talks in great detail about how you get detached from this material world and how you develop this urge to get attached to the spiritual world, or get attached to Krishna consciousness or activities concerning Krishna. You get attached to the process of devotional service and you can easily detach from this material world. So that is what this entire chapter is going to talk about. And the acronym of this chapter is HOME, because it's a formula to go back home, back to Godhead. So that is our real home. This is not our real home. So therefore, the acronym for this chapter is HOME. And what do these stand for? H is for hotel or home. We have to choose whether we want to be in the hotel or we want to be at home. O for on and on, over and over, again and again in this material world. M, maintainer of the body, mind, and soul. Who's the maintainer? Of course, it is the Supreme Lord. So we're going to see how he maintains us. And then E is the essence of the Vedanta in 3 verses. So this chapter, I said, is called Purushottam Yoga. We're going to understand a lot about the Supreme Lord. And definitely, if you understand about the Supreme Lord, you have understood what the Vedanta is all about. Because after all, Vedanta means the end of all Vedas. What is the end of all Vedic knowledge? It is to understand the Supreme Lord, right? So therefore, the 3 verses, it's called as Bhagavad Gita Trishloki. So these 3 verses, they give the essence of the Vedanta in an encapsulated format, in 3 simple verses. So that's the beauty of this chapter. It has 3 jewels embedded in it. So when you think about a hotel, just imagine you're on a holiday You've gone to your favorite destination and you have checked into a nice 5-star hotel. Okay, once you check in, you see that the room is very beautiful, very, very beautiful. You love the room. But then you feel that you want to make it even more comfortable. So you go, you get your family photographs, you start hanging your family photographs on the wall, and then you say, maybe you don't like this blue paint on one of the walls, so you want to change it to yellow. So you go buy a bucket of paint and you start making it yellow. And then you see the sheets here, they are too kiddish, right? Oh, I don't know what this character is, but they look very kiddish. So you want to get some nice, elegant bed sheets. So you go to the store and then you purchase good bed sheets and you put it in that place, and then you change the lampshades and you change everything, and then you're even more happy. You feel, wow, this is wonderful. So do you think it's a practical move? Obviously it's not, right? Why is it not a practical move? Because this hotel is a temporary place. You're not meant to be there for too long. You're going to be there just for 2 or 3 days, not more than that. So why would a sane person start working on making this place the most perfect, environment for him to stay in? Actually, in this world, that is what we are doing. That is what we are doing. We're trying to make this temporary place the most wonderful place, and we're getting attached to it over and over, trying very hard to make it wonderful. But it is not at all worth it. It is not at all worth it. So we must learn to detach, understanding the temporary nature of this place. So when you walk into a hotel room, you're already walking into the hotel room with a mind frame that I'm going to stay here only for 3 days, right? So therefore, you're not developing attachment to that place. So that is practical. But if you think that, I'm going to stay here for long, then you start making changes. That is common sense. Similarly, in this world, actually this world is a temporary place, but we are crazily running after making this a very comfortable place so that we can stay here more and more, and we're getting attached to this place more and more. But we should realize that our real home is indeed in the spiritual world. That is true home. And now we're going to discover more about how to get detached from this world and how to get attached to that world. So that is what this entire 15th chapter is about. Okay. So in the very first verse, Krishna, he gives a beautiful analogy. Krishna is an ocean of analogies. Throughout the Bhagavad Gita and in so many other places, he just gives analogy after analogy. So first, he begins this chapter with a fabulous analogy about the banyan tree. So first, let's read the verse and then the translation, and we'll discuss this verse in detail. The first one, verse, Shri Bhagavanu Vacha Urdhvamulam Madashakam Mashvattam Prahuravyayam Chandamsi Yasya Parnani Yastam Veda Savedavet. The Supreme Personality of God, it is said, there is an imperishable banyan tree that has its root upward and its branches down, and whose leaves are the Vedic hymns. One who knows this tree is the knower of the Vedas. So just by reading the translation, we didn't get much. But what did Krishna mean in this verse? So he says that this material world itself, it is like a reflection of a banyan tree. So you see this picture here? You see a banyan tree. A banyan tree is so vast, right? It has its roots, and from its roots, again, it has hanging roots, and then there is another tree that comes up. So when you see a very, very ancient banyan tree in some parts of India, you may not be able to figure out which is the starting and which is the ending. Okay, where the banyan tree actually started off, where's the origin of this banyan tree, it will be very hard for us to figure out. Maybe newer banyan trees, that have been here for a few years, you can make out. But imagine a banyan tree that has been there for hundreds of years. Okay, it's very, very hard for you to understand where exactly this banyan tree begins. So this banyan tree is just near a water body, and you're seeing the reflection of this banyan tree. So this reflection is actually like this material world. And to see a reflection, you need water, right? You need a body of water. So what is the body of water for us in this material world? It is our desires. So this material world is actually reflected upon an ocean of desire. So we all have so many desires, and that is like the water body. And we are seeing this material world here as a cause of our desires. Okay, so now when you look at this reflection, it is inverted, right? The roots are upwards. You see this picture, the roots are upwards, the branches are lower, and then you have the leaves that are spread everywhere. It is very vast in breadth, and it is spread everywhere. So here we are in this material world, and we are attached to various fruitive activities. Okay, various kinds of materialistic activities that bind us, that give us fruitive reactions. So like that, we are attached to different fruitive activities, and we are getting attracted to all these leaves, lush green leaves. So these lush green leaves are like the Vedas or the mantras in the Vedas, or the rituals in the Vedas. What is the purpose of the rituals in the Vedas? The purpose of the rituals of the Vedas is to keep us happy here. Actually, all this formulae that you have in the 4 Vedas that we talk about, they have different mantras and different rituals. All these mantras and rituals are to keep us bound here, actually, meaning they fulfill our desires. So there are so many prescriptions given in these Vedas. Oh, you want to attain a child? Okay, you do this particular ritual and you will get a child. Oh, you want to conquer your enemy? You do that ritual, you can conquer your enemy. So like that, the Vedas have so many formulae in them. And if you follow these procedures, you will be benefited heavily. And that keeps us attached. We feel very happy, and we want to stay back here, and we get attached here. So these lush green leaves of this reflection are like the different Vedic rituals. Okay, but we should understand this world is only a reflection. So a reflection, what is it? Is it real? It is not real. Can you go and pick the leaves from there? You really cannot do anything in a reflected place. But that's how this world is. It's endless, and it is only a reflection. That's why Krishna, he says, Urdhva Moolam Adashakam Ashvatam Prahuravyayam Chandamsi Yasya Parnani Yasam Veda Savedavid. So he's telling Urdhva Moolam Adam Shakam. It is so, it is inverted. It is a reflection, and it is an imperishable banyan tree. It is imperishable because we are stuck here for age after age, time after time, birth after birth. We just get stuck here, and we're attracted here, and we're completely bound to this one place. One place meaning this entire material world. And then he describes more about this tree. He says, Adaschortvam prashratastasya shaka guna pravritta vishayat pravala adascha molani anusantatani karmanubandini manushya loke. The branches of this tree extend downward and upward, nourished by the 3 modes of material nature. The twigs are the objects of the senses. The tree also has its roots going down, and these are bound to the fruitive actions of human society. So what does that mean? It means that this tree has several branches in all directions, and these branches are like the different planetary systems. So in the Vedic tradition, we learn in the Vedic cosmology that there are different planetary systems. It is not just the solar system, okay? It's really, really huge. The universe is huge, and there are different planetary systems. There are upper planetary systems, lower planetary systems, middle planetary system, where our Earth is. So there are so many planets, okay, in this universe. And we individuals, we jivas, we keep hopping from one planet to the other as we take on different bodies, birth after birth. So today I'm on Earth and I have this body, but maybe in my next birth, I would be born as a demigod and I could be in a different planet. So these different branches, they are like the different planets where different species actually live. Okay. And how are these branches getting their nourishment? They are getting their nourishment by the three modes of material nature. We are all acting in different ways. So we are acting either in the mode of goodness, passion, or ignorance constantly. And we also saw in the previous chapter how usually in the higher planetary systems, people are in the mode of goodness. In the middle planetary systems, usually we are in the mode of passion, and animal species, and there are other living entities who are in the lower modes, in the lower planetary systems as well. So like this whole world is like, these different planetary systems, they are like these branches of the tree, and they're getting nourished by the three modes of material nature. And not only are there big branches, there are also twigs here and there. So you see this tree, there are so many twigs, and these twigs are like the sense objects. Because what do we get here in this material world? We get sense enjoyment, right? So we get nice food, and we get nice warm, nice silken clothing, so much enjoyment, nice touch to the skin, and then taste for the tongue, and then beautiful things to see. So lots of sense enjoyment. So these twigs that is there in these branches, they are like sense objects. And not only are the roots upward, but there are also secondary roots, and they're going everywhere. And what are they doing? They are binding us. So they are kind of, completely entangling us. They are binding us with what? With karma. As we are acting in this world, we are entangled by karma. And the good thing is that in a tree, you get nice fruits, okay? Besides all this, binding and all that, there's something nice to look forward to, which is fruits. So in this material world also, there are good things, like you have the fruits. What are the fruits? Dharma, artha, kama, moksha. These are the fruits that a person in this material world is hankering after. Okay, so this is a very beautiful picture. You see this picture here. Dharma, artha, kama, moksha, for example, artha, economic development, is indicated by the fruits that is here. And then you have the leaves, which are the Vedic hymns. And then you have these sense objects, which are the twigs that are attached to the leaves. And different species and different planetary systems are shown here. You see, this is actually Indra, and then on top, in the topmost portion, actually the roots are on top and the leaves are down, right? It's an inverted banyan tree. So on topmost planetary system, you have Brahma who's sitting. It's a very beautiful, beautiful pictorial representation of these two verses. Now, after describing this tree, Krishna is not describing this so that we can feel happy about this place. He wants us to get out of this place. He wants us to get out of this place because he's on and on telling you it's a reflection. It's not real. It's not something that you want to stay here long for. It's something impermanent. So he tells us, cut off this tree with an axe of detachment. You have to get detached. Don't get too comfortable here, like that hotel room example. So don't get too comfortable here. Cut it off with an axe of detachment. But is that easy? So most of us, we say detachment, but our axe is not at all sharpened. We have the most blunt axe because we don't have determination to get detached. There is no determination in us. So therefore, we don't want to get detached. So he's telling, sharpen your axe with determination, and then chop off this tree. And do what? Chop off this tree. And then where do we go? The tree is not here. He says, you have a better place. Come to me. Come to the land of eternity. And how do I do that? I do that when I surrender to the Supreme Lord. So he very clearly says in verses 3 and 4, understand who the Supreme Lord is. Develop surrender to the Supreme Lord and hanker to go to that land of eternity. You do not have to be here. This is an impermanent place. Please don't hanker to get too comfortable here. Get out of here, cut off this tree and come up, climb up, come up to me. So this is what Krishna is telling us. Now, he said surrender, right? I mean, it's hard, very, very hard. So what is the process of surrender? That also he tells us in the 5th verse. He says, Nirmama moha jita sanga dosha adhyatma nitya vinivritta kama dvandvair vimukta sukha dukkha samyair gacchanta mudha padam avyayantat. Those who are free from false prestige, illusion, and false association who understand the eternal, who are done with material lust, and who are free from the dualities of happiness and distress, and who, unbewildered, know how to surrender to the Supreme Person, attain to that eternal kingdom. By the process of surrender, we want to go to that eternal kingdom, right? So we just saw the formula and the location that we are hankering to go to. But what is stopping us? What is stopping us from going? Why are we getting so bound to this tree, this illusory, this reflected tree? Why are we getting so bound? It is because we have so much pride. And why are we so proud? Because of illusion. We're completely under the spell of ignorance. We are under the illusion that this is a happy place. Everything is good here. This is the best thing I can get. I can get enjoyment here. That sort of illusion is actually making me very proud to think that I am the controller. I have things in control. I know how to do this. I am the independent person here. So that sort of pride, we get puffed up. We become very, very proud. We are very, very minute, but still our ego is so high. So our ego is so high because we are foolish. Because of the ignorance that we have, because of the illusion that we have, we become very, very proud. But Krishna tells, cultivate knowledge. Cultivate knowledge from Bhagavad Gita. Cultivate knowledge from nice scriptures. And get out of that illusion. Come to knowledge. So how do you, get out of illusion? By developing knowledge, right? That's the way you actually get out of illusion. So he says, cultivate knowledge. And as you cultivate knowledge, you will understand reality. You'll understand that the dualities in this world are very, very, very impermanent. Okay, like you have happiness and distress, you have winning and losing. So there are so many dualities in this world. Sometimes we get so engulfed by these different dualities. We think, we are scared of failure. We become too happy when there is something that is good that is happening. But none of this is permanent, right? So once we develop knowledge, we are able to tolerate dualities. We neither become too excited when something nice happens, nor do we become too upset when we meet with many failures. So we are able to be steady because we have come to the point of knowledge. We have cultivated knowledge. Because we have cultivated knowledge, what else has happened? The illusion has gone and we have become humble. So actually, when we have all these qualities, then surrender becomes possible. So actually the formula, 1-point formula for surrender is humility. If you can become humble, if you can come to the realization that you are actually nothing when compared to the Lord, that is when surrender becomes very easy. So the first thing that one must develop is humility, just like the grass that you see in this picture. So we all walk on grass, right? In the US, we have such nice backyards and front yards, and we get to walk on grass. Nice luxury of this country, you can walk on grass. When you walk on grass and when you trample on grass, what happens to the grass? The grass bends down. It just bends down with humility. And then it is also resilient, right? Once you walk away from the grass can also come up and it is ready for another person to trample on it, and it bends down. And then as you walk further, it is resilient, it comes up. So through the process of humility, we can surrender and we can also become more and more resilient in our life. We can tolerate the different dualities very, very easily. We become very seasoned, seasoned devotees, as they call it. You meet with so many things that you're able to tolerate many, many reversals in life. So humility is a very, very important quality. And once you really start cultivating humility, that is when surrendering process begins. Okay, so remember the example of the grass. Next time we see the grass, we should always think, someday I should follow in the footsteps of this grass and learn to be humble. Only when a humble heart can actually surrender to the Lord. So now, we talked about the process. We talked about how we surrender to the Lord. But what is the goal of the process? To go to the spiritual world, right? So we are telling spiritual world, but do we have any information about the spiritual world? We have so much information about this material world, so we are very happy here. We want to make this our home. But if I keep telling, you have to go to the spiritual world and I don't give you any information about how that world is, would you have any desire to go there? You would not have any desire. So to kindle that desire in our hearts for all of us to go to that wonderful world, Krishna talks about the spiritual world. He says, Na tad bhasayate suryo na sashanko na pavakaha yad gatva na nivartante tattama paramam mama. So he says that supreme abode of mine is not illumined by the sun or moon, nor by fire or electricity. Those who reach it never return to this material world. So through this one verse, Krishna is trying to tell us that this is the ultimate abode. It is not like the darkness of this material world. This material world, though we have the sun and the moon, we are dependent on the sunshine and the moonshine, right? We are dependent. But there in the spiritual world, there is no necessity for such sort of illumination. It is not a dark world. It is a self-effulgent world. It is a world that is the ultimate and it is self-luminous, meaning once you go there, you will be completely happy. There is no scope for ignorance to hit you. There is no scope for illusion at all because it is bright. See, it is bright not only in the physical sense, but it is bright also in a spiritual way, meaning there is no scope of getting into this darkness or illusion in the spiritual world. So it is important for us to understand the quality of the spiritual world, and by hearing more and more about the spiritual world, one should get captivated by this information. So when you read about the description of Goloka Vrindavan or Vaikuntha from scriptures, you should get captivated. It is such a beautiful place. It's an eternal place. And at once one should desire to get transferred to that eternal world. One will come to the realization that this place is actually temporary and that is my real home. So he gives us a little information about home, how the spiritual world is. But of course, throughout the Vedic literature, there is a lot of information about how the spiritual world is. Okay, so we finished the first section and we'll have a look at a life lesson. So we saw that this material world is like a reflected tree. Bird-like individuals, we all jivas, we are trying to peck on the fruits in the reflection. If you're trying to peck on the fruits in a reflection, what will you get? You will not get anything. You're not going to get any juice because after all, it is a reflection. It is not reality, right? It is not the real thing. So you're trying to peck on the reflection. Therefore, don't do that. What we need to do is find the fruit in the right place. Don't have this excessive desire to enjoy in this material world. So Krishna is not telling us to renounce the world itself, abruptly. Yes, we have to renounce ultimately, but not that, we have to renounce abruptly. We should renounce first the desire to enjoy this world. That is what we have to renounce first. So we should be very clear, we already saw this in the third chapter about the hyper sannyasi who just renounced immaturely. That's not what Krishna is telling us. Krishna is telling us first renounce the desire to enjoy. Then the detachment becomes possible. So he's not telling us give up the world and die tomorrow. It's not that. What we have to do is we have to renounce the desire to enjoy first and not the world itself. So that is the lesson for our first section. Now we are moving on to O. O is for on and on, over and over, again and again. And this is all about transmigration from one life to the other. So after Krishna spoke, he gave us a glimpse of the spiritual world and he said he gave us a trailer, okay? A nice trailer. This is how the spiritual world is like. So are you interested? Do you want to come? He gave us that invitation. Now a question may be raised. Why should do I fit in there? Am I worthy of going there? Am I really going to be happy there? So all these questions we would have in our mind, right? So to clarify that, Krishna immediately reminds us of our constitutional position, who we really are. So he says, Manaivam Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatanaha Manaha Sasthani Indriyani Prakritistani Kashrati. The living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the six senses, which include the mind. So Krishna is first telling us that you are actually my part and parcel. You're qualitatively one with me. I am Satchidananda, you are also Satchidananda. So in quality, we are one. You are a tiny fragment of me. How? We already saw the analogy in our previous session. Just like Krishna is like a gold mine. And from a gold mine, little particles of gold can be obtained and you can make all your jewelry with that little gold particle. The quality of the gold particle and the gold mine is the same, but there is a huge difference in the quantity. Okay, this little piece of gold cannot become the gold mine, right? So like that, Krishna is telling qualitatively we are one. You will fit in here. He's giving us that invitation. Another analogy, sparks of fire and fire. So imagine there is a huge fire. Usually when there's a raging fire, there are sparks that are emanating from the fire. So we are like those little tiny sparks. The spark is same in quality, but the spark cannot become the big fire itself. So Krishna is like that fire. Another example, ocean and a drop in the ocean. So you have ocean water, it is salty. A tiny drop from that ocean water is also salty, but the drop cannot flood, or that one drop cannot drown a ship, right? So Krishna is Krishna, we are what we are. We are very minute, we are very, very tiny, but we still have a similar quality. So we fit in there. So Krishna is telling that is where you're going to be happy. In this material world, you're like a fish out of water. What happens when you take a fish out of water? Is that fish going to be happy? That fish cannot be happy. He's going to lose his life. So that is what we are all doing here. We are struggling here. We are like that fish out of water, flapping, 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 and we are struggling in this material world. So he's telling, you know, you'll be satisfied only when you're reinstated in your constitutional position in the spiritual world. So come, get detached from the temporary place. Come and join me. Okay, so he reminds us of our constitutional position. And then he tells us how we are struggling. In this material world, we are stuck. How are we struggling? We are constantly transmigrating on and on, again and again. We are in this material world and we are going from one body to the other, just like how air carries aromas. It's very subtle. It's very subtle. You know, air can carry aromas from one place to the other very silently, but you can, you know, somewhere a nice flower garden or a garbage pit somewhere like half a mile from me, I can actually sense it through the smell because the air is carrying the aroma. Like that, it's a very subtle thing, this transmigration. You're going from one body to the other. But the subtle body is actually carrying your mind, intelligence, and false ego is our subtle body. By the medium of our subtle body, we are jumping from one body to the other. So why are we doing this? Because we are thinking that we have independence. We are the Ishvara of this body. We are the controller of this body. And we choose to exercise that minute independence. And we keep doing good and bad activities. And we receive the fruits of these good and bad activities. We pile up our karma. We have endless desires. And because of the karma and desires that we keep accruing again and again, we end up taking another body. So this is a nice picture of a person whose soul is transmigrating from one body to the other. Because of his desires and the different activities that he's doing, he's actually formulating his next body, meaning he's already getting ready for the next body based on the activities that he's performing. Like, for example, the last picture is very nice, where this lady, she's involved in a lot of worship. She's very pious. She's very, very pious. And the next life, she gets the life of a sadhu, right? So like this, whatever we are, our activities, we are sowing our future. We are sowing the seeds for our future based on the activities and the desires that we have in this life. So like this, we are transmigrating with the help of our subtle body from one place to the other. Actually, Krishna is telling us that our constitution is very pure. The nature of the soul is very pure, Satchit Ananda, just like Krishna. But then what happens is this constitutional, this consciousness that is very pure, it gets changed according to the association of material qualities that is having life after life. Just like you have a drop of water here, you put it in clear water, what happens? This entire water becomes blue. A drop of ink and the entire water has become blue. Initially, our consciousness is clear like the clear water. But then we take on, we get associated with different kinds of material qualities and we take on them, into us. So we become contaminated like this one drop of ink that is getting into this glass of water. So that is how we're taking on body after body and our consciousness is getting contaminated from time to time. And we're transmigrating one body to the other. Sometimes we're in a fish body and then we come to a snake's body. And then one day we are a panther. And then finally we become a human being. So we are just going through 8,004,000 species. Padma Purana tells that there are 8,004,000 species in this universe through which we are all transmigrating. But we must understand the process of transmigrating. Why am I transmigrating? Why am I having this problem? Why am I taking birth after birth? The cycle is going on and on. It has to stop. So if a person comes to the understanding that this transmigration is no good and it has to stop, such a person has developed jnana chakshu, meaning he has really developed knowledge, the eye of knowledge. He has come to the understanding that the spirit is different from the body, and this changing of body and enjoying in various ways is not something he should keep doing over and over again and again. So he comes to that realization that this is enough. I don't have to keep doing this all the time. And once he comes to the realization, he's ready to actually go to the spiritual world. He doesn't want to take birth again and again. So a life lesson for this section is that the more and more material desires we have, see, we saw that karma and desire is the main reason why we are transmigrating again and again, right? And that is keeping us bound here. We are not able to get detached and we are not able to go back. So therefore, what we can do with this material desires is that we can transform them into spiritual desires. So the life lesson is material desires lead to bondage, and hence one should learn to have spiritual desires. How do we do that? So this is a beautiful picture with the 5 senses and Krishna in the center. So we all have eyes, we desire to see beautiful things. The way we can spiritualize our desire is by seeing the beautiful form of Krishna. By seeing the beautiful form of Krishna, the deities, our eyes get purified. We constantly hear things, we love hearing gossip, we love hearing nice music. There are so many things, but we can engage our hearing nice kirtans that glorify the Lord. We can hear the chanting of the holy names. We can hear Srimad Bhagavatam. We can hear Bhagavad Gita. We can hear Harikatha and purify our ears. So slowly these senses, they get spiritualized and our desires also become spiritual. From material desires, slowly we get tuned to spiritual desires. Okay, then the hands, we like to touch soft things, right? So we can use this in various ways in dressing and decorating the body of Krishna and decorating deities. We can use our hands, and then our tongue is constantly looking out for delicious foodstuffs. So we can train the tongue by eating Krishna Prasadam. The tongue gets trained. And then the nose, we love to smell good things. So smell the flowers that is offered to the Lord. Smell the tulsi leaves. We are seeing the story of the 4 Kumaras for the past 3-4 chapters. So the Kumaras, their life got transformed just by using this faculty of smell in the right way. So the lesson is that we should have spiritual desires and use our sensory faculties in the right way in Krishna consciousness. And the analogy given is that just like how enemies are curbed by a superior force, similarly, the senses can be curbed not by any human endeavor, but only by keeping them engaged in the service of the Lord. So slowly, as our senses are engaged in a spiritual way, we start having spiritual desires. You know, a person who is engaged in deity worship for some time, using his senses in deity worship for sometime over a period of time, you know what desires they have. You talk to a person who's working as a pujari for some time. You ask, what is your desire? They will tell, oh, next time when I go to the store, I want to buy a nice necklace for my deity. See, the desire is not, I want to buy a necklace for myself. I want to buy a nice necklace for my deity so that I can decorate the deity beautifully. I can decorate my Lord beautifully. So the desires become spiritualized as the senses are engaged properly. Okay, now the next section, maintainer of body, mind, and soul. So Krishna, what he did was, he told us about how we are transmigrating, right? That is what we saw in the previous section. He told us you're stuck here, you're transmigrating from one place to the other, become a jnana chakshu, realize that you're transmigrating, understand that you're not this body, don't have such desires. He's telling us all this. And he doesn't stop there. You know, he's not a person who just gives us free advice and then he runs away. No, Krishna is very personal, right? That is something we have seen over and over. So Krishna comes and he maintains us. Even though we are here, we are away from him, still Krishna has so much interest in us. He's not the person who has just given us the invitation from a distance, please come home. No, he comes to our home and he pulls us to his home. That is what Krishna does. So he maintains us even here. Even here, he is constantly accompanying us. He's maintaining us. Whatever happiness, you know, whatever comfort we need to have to sustain our body, that also he is the one who's providing. He talks about 3 different verses as to how he maintains us on 3 different levels. The very first level he maintains us is on a cosmic level. So this entire universe, this creation, everything has come from Krishna. Now, Krishna not just created it, but he came inside and he made sure that he maintains everything properly. He's running the organization properly. So he's taking that responsibility. Just like you see in this picture, there are planets and each of these planets have their orbits. So who's keeping these planets in their orbits? It is Krishna. Because Krishna says that through these cords called as pravahas, he actually holds the planets in their orbits, these invisible cords. Have you ever seen a planet, you know, being tied to a rope and going round and round? That never happens. These are invisible cords and they are maintained by Krishna, by the energy of Krishna. Krishna is sustaining these planets in orbit. You must have never heard of suddenly Saturn falling off and getting into the orbit of Uranus. That can never happen. Why these things are in so much perfect order? Because Krishna is constantly supervising them. He's taking care of every single thing that we need. So even on a cosmic level, Krishna is taking care. And Krishna says in this verse, I'm just reading the English of it. He says, I enter into each planet and by my energy they stay in orbit. I become the moon and thereby supply the juice of life for all vegetables. The splendor of the sun, which dissipates the darkness of this whole world, comes from me. And the splendor of the moon and the splendor of the fire are also from me. So Krishna, he is responsible for the splendor of the fire, for the splendor of the moon, for the splendor of the sun. Everything Krishna is responsible. If the sun is giving us heat and light, it is possible by the mercy of the Lord. The Vedas say that the sun rises and sets in fear of the Supreme Lord. So the Supreme Lord is responsible for the, actually, you know, many of us, we talk about how the earth is perfectly placed. It is at a perfect distance from the sun, so much so that it can receive heat and light at the same time, not get burned down. So who put these things in perfect distance? It is Krishna. It is the Supreme Lord. He made this creation in such a way that everything is perfectly set for us. So he says that I am the one who actually maintains the sun and this moon. The splendor of the sun, which dissipates the darkness of the whole world, is made possible by me. And the moon also, which is required in the night, is also made possible by me. So the moon is also something that is very important. As much as sunshine is important for us, moonshine is also important. You know why? The moon is responsible for the juice and vegetables and fruits. So the fruits and vegetables, they get nourished by the moonshine to actually have proper juice or proper flavor or proper, whatever taste in them. The herbs, the healing herbs, they also have the right juice in them only because of the moonshine. So Krishna himself, by his own energy, he facilitates that the sun and the moon are able to be at a particular distance, and they are able to be beneficial to all human beings. So they nourish the life on earth. They nourish the plants, they nourish the human beings, and we are all happy here only because Krishna is taking care of everything on a cosmic level. So the next one, he talks about how he's present on a bodily level. It's not that he's just far out there and he's taking care of the planetary orbits and the sun and the moon, and he doesn't come into every human being. He takes care of us also. How does he take care of us? So for survival, what do? We all eat for survival. So is it enough if we just eat? That food has to get digested. Who's going to help that food get digested? There is a Jhataragni. It's called as Vaishvanara. There is an Agni in the stomach. Okay, it's called as the fire of digestion, Jhataragni. In Ayurveda, if the fire of digestion is not good, a person cannot digest his food properly. And if you cannot digest your food properly, how much ever you eat, you're not going to get nourished. You're only going to have indigestion. So Krishna takes the responsibility. He comes and he's present as the Vaishvanara. Aham Vaishvanaro bhutva praninam deham ashratah pranapana samayukta pachami annam chaturvidham. So he says, I am the fire of digestion in the bodies of all living entities, and I join with the life air. So what he does is he joins with the air of life, outgoing and incoming, to digest the four kinds of foodstuffs. So, fire is not possible without air. So if there is no oxygen, you cannot have fire, right? So fire is not possible without air. So what Krishna does is there are 5 different kinds of airs that circulate within the body. Krishna enters along with that air. So he's so kind, right? So he enters along with that air and he supports the digestion in our body. So the incoming, outgoing, so there are 5 different kinds of air: prana, pana, udana, vyana, samana. Like that, there are 5 kinds of airs. Krishna enters and he helps with the digestion. And what kind of digestion, what kind of foods are we eating? We are eating so many kinds of foods, and generally they are classified as 4, depending on how they are ingested. Okay, the 4 classification, he says, Pachami Annam Chaturvidham, 4 types, right? What are the 4? Some foods are drunk. Juice, you take from the refrigerator, you pour it into the glass and you gulp it, right? So you drink it. There are some foods that are chewed. Of course, chapati, rice, everything you have to chew and eat. There are some that are licked up. Ice cream. Who doesn't love ice cream? Ice cream is licked up. And there are some that is sucked. Like you put a straw, you can suck. So like that, 4 kinds of ingested food. All of these different kinds of foods, who's helping it to get digested? It is Krishna. Because of Krishna's mercy, we are digesting our food and we are getting energy to live here. Okay, so not only is he there on a cosmic level, he's also helping us live here, sustain ourselves. And not just that, he's present as the Paramatma to help us live in this world. Sarvasya chaham hridi sannivishto mataha smriti jnanam apohanam cha vedaischa sarvairahameva vedyo vedanta kridveda videva chaham. I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me comes remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. By all the Vedas, I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of the Vedanta, and I am the knower of the Vedas. So he's present as the Paramatma, and as the Paramatma, we saw earlier that he is the witness and the sanctioner. We saw that what the Paramatma does to, right? We saw that he's a witness to all our activities and he's a sanctioner. But besides that, you know what? It's very interesting that even remembrance, forgetfulness, knowledge, everything comes by the mercy of the Lord. Everything. Just like, you know, sometimes we have these deja vu moments, right? We have experienced this earlier. We have seen this place earlier. I've had this feeling earlier. Where is all this coming from? It is coming from the Paramatma. Similarly, sometimes we forget so many things. That is also inspired by the Paramatma. One important forgetfulness that we have, which is the mercy of the Lord, is we forget our previous births. So imagine if you remember all your previous births, you would be in so much confusion and your life would be such a big mess. So Krishna, very mercifully, this Paramatma, he makes you forget everything. He makes you forget everything so that in this life you can start fresh. So such sort of forgetfulness is also sanctioned and facilitated by the Supreme Lord. It is interesting that some of the very close associates of the Lord, like the Vrajavasis, they had this special mercy of Krishna, that Krishna would make them forget that he's God. Okay, only because Krishna would make them forget that he is God, would the Vrajavasis have a spontaneous relationship, a spontaneous loving relationship with Krishna. So once Mother Yashoda, she saw that you know, all the planets were there in Krishna's mouth, and she was completely startled, and she thought, oh my God, what is this? My son is something very special. But then immediately Krishna made her forget everything. That forgetfulness was so important for Krishna to have a nice loving relationship with his mother. And the same with the gopis, I mean, with the Mother Yashoda also. Unless and until she forgot that Krishna is God, she couldn't have had that loving relationship with him, right? So even forgetfulness is actually the mercy of the Lord. So even forgetfulness, remembrance, intelligence to renew our spiritual activity. Like, okay, I've forgotten all the things that I did in my past birth, but then maybe in my past birth, I had progressed a little bit in my spiritual path. I had attained 50% success in my spiritual path. So in this birth, somehow Krishna, at some point in time, he gives you the intelligence to renew your spiritual path. So how many of you must have had this experience where suddenly one day, or you know, you would have thought, oh, I really want to learn the Bhagavad Gita. And then you start picking up the Bhagavad Gita like really fast, like 2 chapters, 3 chapters, and then you get the entire philosophy and you really learn super fast. How is it that you could suddenly progress? Right? That is because you're picking it up from the previous birth. And that picking up knowledge that you're having now, that is also facilitated by Krishna. Because Krishna is keeping account of all this. He's keeping account of your past birth. He knows everything. He knows how much you have progressed. So he knows, okay, this person, let's see who's on the call. I can pick some name. Padmaja. Padmaja will start from 68% today. So he gives you, and then you're like skyrocketing high and you perform devotional service really, really fast. So that intelligence is also given by the Supreme Lord. Then Krishna tells, what is the Vedas? The Vedas is a knowledge book, right? A book of knowledge. So he says, of all the Vedas, all this knowledge that you have in this world, I am to be known. I am the ultimate compiler of the Vedas, and I am the knower of the Vedas. And of all the Vedas, the ultimate knowledge that you should get is about me. So like this, Krishna, he is with us in 3 different levels, and he tells us what is the goal of all the studies. The goal of all the studies is to actually know Krishna. Life lesson for this section: we should appreciate Krishna's position, and we should develop a sense of gratefulness. And we should realize that even sense enjoyment is not possible without the Lord. Whatever sense enjoyment we are having here, if Krishna is not here, that is not possible for us. If Krishna is not there within our heart, if Krishna is not there as the Jataragni, how are we even going to enjoy in this world, right? Even though this world is not a place for us to enjoy, even though we are supposed to go there, still, when we are here, whatever comfort we are having, whatever little enjoyment we are having, that is only possible because of the mercy of the Lord. So it is very important for us to feel grateful. We should appreciate what we have. Whatever we have, it is by the mercy of the Lord. So unless and until we are grateful, it's very, very hard for us to progress in this life. So next section is the essence of the Vedanta in 3 verses. These are verses 16 to 18. These 3 verses are very important. As I said in the beginning of the session, and this is called as Bhagavad Gita Trishloki. And, we have 4 Vedas. The end of the Vedas is the Vedanta, generally the Upanishads, okay? So these Upanishads, they give us some idea about the Supreme, about the Jiva, about the Supreme. All this is discussed in the Vedanta. But then what is the essence of these 3, of this entire Vedanta? That is actually, in one sense, it is the Srimad Bhagavatam. If you hear the Bhagavatam, you'll get the essence of the Vedas. But within the Bhagavad Gita, if you're searching out for the essence of the Vedanta, you can churn it out from these 3 verses. So these 3 verses are very important. So first, Krishna, he tells us about 2 kinds of living entities. Why does he have to tell that here? Because all this while, he was giving us an invitation to come to the spiritual world, right? That is what he was doing all this while. He was telling the problems of this material world. He was telling you, cut this tree, come back to me. My world is very nice. You please come here. He gave us all this, preface of what to expect in the spiritual world. And then he also told us that he's constantly there with us. He's ready to take us there. But then what's happening there? Who is there? And who are we? Who is there and who is he? So that knowledge he reveals in these 3 verses. He says, Dvavimau purushau loke ksharascha vacha ksharaha sarvani bhutani kutasto akshara uchyate. There are 2 classes of beings, the fallible and the infallible. In the material world, every living entity is fallible. And in the spiritual world, every living entity is called infallible. So which means that in the spiritual world with Krishna, there are some jivas, some living entities who are called as Nitya Siddhas. They are eternally there with Krishna and they have never made a mistake to fall. Meaning they have never made the mistake of coming to the material world. But we all here in this material world, we are all stuck here and we have made mistakes. We are fallible. We are fallible. But it doesn't mean that there is no solution to this. We have to be here forever. It's a jail. It is not like that. It is not like that. We can actually transcend by taking up the process of Krishna consciousness, by surrendering to the Lord. We can transcend this world and we can also go and join those people who are infallible. Those Nitya Siddhas we can also go and join. So another beautiful example to understand how the jivas are of 2 types. So basically the jivas are of the Baddha Atmas who are here in this material world and the Nitya Siddhas who are there in the spiritual world. So this is a nice example which I heard. I just thought of sharing this for us to understand. So when a child is born, there are many ceremonies that are done, like you have the ceremony where the umbilical cord is cut, and then you have the time when the Uttana ceremony happens, meaning the child turns over, and then as the child grows, it's time for him to take his first grain meals. It's called as the Annaprasana ceremony. So during the Annaprasana ceremony, in certain cultures, there is this habit of letting the child go and pick up stuff. Okay, this is the first time the child is going to leave the lap of the father and he's going to go and explore. Okay, so now different things are placed in front of him. So this is a nice cake actually. I just found this picture online. It's a nice cake of the different items kept in front of a child who is in this Annaprasana ceremony. So what do you see here? You see some money, pen, pencil, there's a Bhagavad Gita book, there is nice foodstuffs, and then jewelry, and then sweets and whatnot, a lot of other interesting items. In those days, they would even keep what is required for the 4 varnas to check the inclination of the child. They would keep weapons for a Kshatriya, money for a Vaishya, and then books like the Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam for a Brahmana, and then certain instruments for the other class. So like this, they would keep different objects in front of the child and they would let the child explore. So what happens? The child is on the father's lap and then he's allowed to go. Now, when such a thing happens, there are two kinds of children. One set of children, they are very, very inquisitive. They love to explore. They want to go and check out what is there. So the first minute their father leaves their grip, they are just out, They just jump off the father's lap and they're crawling and they go and they start picking up things. That is one set of people, one set of kids. And we are actually in that class, okay? We are ready to explore. We just got out of Krishna's lap and we are here in this world and we just want to explore everything of this world. But there is another class of kids. You know what they do? They cling on to the father's lap and they keep crying and they say, I'm not going to leave you. I don't want to go. I don't want to see anything there. They look at these objects, they turn their face and then they're crying and crying and crying and hugging their father. So this is the second class of people. These are actually like the Nitya Siddhas. They never left Krishna. They were never fallible. Infallible, they're all infallible. But we, the other class of people, we are here making mistakes over and over, transmigrating over and over. So we are like this little kid getting attracted to all these different things of this material world. So Krishna says, there are two classes of beings, the fallible and the infallible. In the material world, every living entity is fallible. And in the spiritual world, every living entity is called as infallible. Okay, but besides these two, so he spoke about two classes of jivas. Now, besides these two, there is one other personality. He is Uttama Purusha. Remember the title of this chapter, Purushottama Yoga, right? So remember that throughout. So he says, Uttama Purusha Swanya Paramatmeti Udhakrita Yolokatrayama Vishya Bhibarti Avyaya Ishvara. Besides these two, there is the greatest living personality, the supreme soul, the imperishable Lord himself who has entered the three worlds and is maintaining them. So he's telling, I know you're fallible, but I am not fallible. I am not fallible. I'm even greater than those Nitya Siddhas who are there in the spiritual world. I am Uttama. I am greater than that jivas as well as the jivas who are in the material world. But still I have come here for your sake as the Paramatma and I'm trying to maintain all of you. So a person who can really understand, a wise person who can understand this Uttama Purusha becomes eligible for peace and no one else. And here he declares that he is Purushottama. This is the declaration verse of this entire chapter. Yo mamevam sammudo janati purushottamam sa sarvavid bhajati mam sarva bhavena bharata. Because I am transcendental, beyond both the fallible and the infallible, and because I am the greatest, I am celebrated both in this world and in the Vedas as that supreme person, Purushottama. So he is Uttama Purusha. He is not any ordinary Purusha. We are all enjoyers, tiny enjoyers, small enjoyers. But Krishna is Uttama Purusha. He's beyond the ignorance of this material world. He's Uttama Purusha. So there are two things, Tara, Tama. Tara is comparative and Tama is superlative. So Krishna is superlative. He's Purushottama. He's superlative. So, and he's beyond the two. He doesn't fit into either of these classes. He's transcendental and he's beyond both the fallible and the infallible. And then he tells the knower of me, one who knows me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who's greater than the fallible and the infallible classes of jivas. He is actually the knower of everything. Therefore, he engages himself in devotional service unto me. And if a person is engaged in full Krishna consciousness in the devotional service of the Lord, he is said to have understood all the Vedic knowledge. So what is Krishna telling here? He's telling us that if you have understood me, meaning Krishna, if you have understood Krishna, then there is nothing else that you need to know. If you have understood Krishna, you have understood everything else automatically. Understand Krishna, it is equal to understanding everything else of this world. Not only this world, everything possible if you have understood Krishna. There's a nice story again in the Vedanta, in the Upanishads, about Uddalaka and Shvetaketu. Uddalaka was the father of Shvetaketu. So Shvetaketu, when he was a young boy, he went to the Gurukula to learn under his guru. And he came back when he was around 24 years of old. After he came back from the Gurukul, and he saw his father, and he told his father that he learned so much in the Gurukul, so much. And he has mastered all the 4 Vedas and he knows everything. And his father was observing him, and he saw so much pride in him. He was thinking, this boy is very proud. So because he's very proud, it means that he really doesn't know anything. A person who really knows will be very humble. That is the nature of a person who knows. But this boy was bragging that he understood everything and he learned everything. So Uddalaka, who's the father, he asked Shvetaketu. So he asked, do you know, I mean, you told me you learned a lot in your school, but then do you know that by knowing which everything is known? And Shvetaketu was stunned. He never expected such a question. Like, what? Knowing that everything else will be known? How is it possible? But then later, the father explained to him that if you understand the Supreme Lord, the Supreme Brahman, Parabrahman, everything else that has to be known will automatically be known. So just by knowing the Lord, everything will be known. In fact, one devotee was mentioning that, if you're a devotee of Krishna, then anything else in this world, you'll be able to manage anything. Because if you know Krishna, automatically everything of this world will be automatically known to you. So it comes with practice and with some exposure. As you start knowing more and more about Krishna, the things of this material world are actually insignificant. You learn them like this. There is no need for too much hard endeavor once you know Krishna. So we are going to end this chapter. Krishna is also giving a Phalashruti for this chapter. Very rarely Krishna gives Phalashruti in Bhagavad Gita. So please listen to the Phalashruti attentively. He says, Iti guhyatamam shastram idamuktam maya naga etad buddhva buddhiman syat krita krityascha bharata. This is the most confidential part of Vedic scriptures. Guhya means confidential. Guhyatamam means superlative confidential. This is the most confidential part of the Vedic scriptures, O sinless one, and it is disclosed by me to you. Whoever understands this will become wise and his endeavors will know perfection. So welcome to perfection and enjoy the journey, because the journey is devotional service and it is very enjoyable. And what is the perfection? The perfection is to understand Krishna, who he is. So life lesson for this section, make every endeavor to know Krishna, who is Purushottama, who is the Supreme, and make your life very devotional. So we are going to summarize this entire chapter. We are done with all the 20 verses. It was a short chapter, but so heavy, right? So many things to learn from this chapter. So our acronym was HOME, hotel or home. That was the first part we saw. Krishna described an imperishable banyan tree, and he told us, don't get attached to the banyan tree, cut it with determination and surrender unto me. And then what will happen if you surrender? He said, you will attain the Supreme Lord, meaning you will attain the spiritual world. And he also warned us that this banyan tree is just reflected on a river of desire. And since it's a reflection, don't take it seriously, cut it down and attain the spiritual world. That was hotel or home. The next was on and on, over and over again and again. And he spoke about how we are suffering here in this world, transmigrating from one species to the other. But a person, a jnana chakshu, a person who sees through the eyes of knowledge, can understand this process of transmigration, and he would want to stop the transmigration and attain the spiritual world. Then he spoke about how it's not that, he just gave us a glimpse of the spiritual world, gave us an invitation and he forgot about us, but he tells us how he maintains us at different levels. What are the different levels he maintains us by? He maintains us on a bodily level, maintains us on a cosmic level, and he's always a constant companion on a mental level by giving us remembrance, forgetfulness, and knowledge. Okay. And then finally, we saw the 3 verses, which is the essence of the Vedanta, that spoke about the fallible, infallible, and Uttama Purusha, who's beyond the fallible and the infallible. He spoke about these 3 different cases, and he said that he is Purushottama, and we should try to understand Purushottama. If we understand Purushottama, then all the knowledge that is to be known will be automatically known. So that was our 15th chapter, Purushottama Yoga. Very, very sweet chapter. Krishna had so much to tell us. So we'll end here. Any questions?
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for such a beautiful session with so many beautiful analogies and the story that you put. Yes, if we know Krishna, nothing else is left to be known. We know everything if we know Krishna. That was really wonderful. Thank you so much. So now I request everybody to please don't hesitate in asking questions. If you have any questions, please go ahead. You can type it in the chat box. You can raise your hands. You can unmute and you can simply ask. So we'll give some time. Okay, any raised hands? I really request, please don't hesitate, because this is the forum where you can clear up all your doubts. You can freely ask your questions so that all the doubts are cleared. Okay.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, Salvarishta Srila Prabhupada and Radhanila Madhava. That was really an awesome, awesome session, Mataji. I really liked one point, like you were telling, right, that when the boy is left and he just runs away to getting attracted to the various things kept in front of him, and we are similar to that. And I felt like I'm also similar to that in this material world, coming to this material world. Really I feel like that. And the siddhas who are sticking to the father, I think they are the best. I wish I would have been like that. Because really we don't know what blunder we are doing. Since we are in that stage, kids do that. But even though we are knowing so much, but still we are doing that. So we are really doing blunder, that we are going away from our father.
That's so true. Yeah. That's very true, Mataji. Only thing is we can hope that really come to the realization that this is not the place to be in. Yeah. And take it up seriously. Take up devotional service seriously. Yes.
Yes, Mataji.
Mataji, so nice to hear from you.
Yeah. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else has anything to ask or share? Okay. So looks like with every chapter, people are becoming more and more silent. That means they are understanding better and better with every chapter, which is good. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you so much. I would just like to add one thing. Vilasini Mataji took one name, Padmaja, from the participant list. And Padmaja is now Padma Priya Devi Dasi. She recently got initiated.
Hari Bo.
Hari Bo.
Padmaja Mataji, you want to unmute and say something?
Hare Krishna Mataji. Thank you. It's such a nice class, Mataji. Actually, whenever I listen to this class, about the comparison, like spiritual world with banyan tree, I don't know. I don't get like water. How it will be like? The roots are upwards, right?
Mhm.
So, can you give an example, Mataji?
Example of
How it will be like? I can't imagine like a banyan tree up
you would
with
like to see,
roots upwards.
did you see the pictures, Mataji?
Yeah.
Okay, I can share the slide just for our understanding, you know. There we go. So this is how we first understand the reflection. So this is reflection, right? So if you look at it, the roots look upward, right? The roots are on top, right?
Yeah.
They are more closer to the actual spiritual. See, you should imagine that this reflected tree is the material world and the actual tree on top is the spiritual world. Okay. So what is close to the spiritual world? It is the roots, right? And who's there on the roots? It is Brahma, meaning the more advanced, or the advanced species or the advanced living beings. They are closer. So this is the inverted banyan tree and the roots upwards. And we are all here. We are all trying to enjoy these leaves. We have ample lush leaves to kind of, and then we are hopping on the branches, different species. You see, this is another beautiful picture. What is the water? The water is desire. You see Brahma sitting on the topmost part of the root. And then Indra, here you have the branches. These are the fruits, economic development, religiosity, and all that. And then you have the Vedic hymns, which are the leaves, the sense objects, which are the little twigs, and then you have entangled branch roots that are going downwards also, which is the karma that is binding us. So the nourishment is by the watering of the three modes. Three modes of material nature are constantly nourishing these leaves. Like that. So these pictures, I think always pictures speak 1,000 words. So this one picture, first for our first impression, you can look at reflected banyan tree like this. And then as you move on, these are more details.
What are you doing?
Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Mataji, I say the desire is the separating both the spiritual and this material planet, or what?
Oh, yes. Meaning,
so if you don't have desire, that means we'll go to the spiritual, right?
Yes, meaning if you're void of material desires, but we can spiritualize the desires and have spiritual desires. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Mataji. That was Pranam Jai Srila Prabhupada. Mataji, Dandot Pranams. Thank you so much for such an amazing class. Can you hear me, Mataji?
Yes. I can hear.
Mataji, I don't know whether this is related to this class or not. So, can you explain what is spiritual greed? Is it appropriate or not?
Spiritual greed is lobha, right? Lobha. You should have spiritual greed. Yes, it is appropriate. You should have spiritual greed in a way that it is not detrimental to anyone. You know, it should not be something that is actually it should not have a negative connotation. Spiritual greed should always be on a positive connotation. That greed should not impact anyone else in a negative way. But we should have the greed to do more service, to do more devotional service, to be engaged more nicely in a spiritual way. That greed should be there. So that's called lobha. But saying that I have the greed, I need to do more, you should not be obstructing someone else's advancement. So that spiritual greed should be really spiritual. Yeah, the intention is very important. Did that make sense, Mataji?
Yes. So it should not be envious to others, but greed is appropriate. Spiritual greed, not the material greed, correct?
Correct, yes.
Awesome, Mataji. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Hare Krishna. Rajeshwari, I think, had a question.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
15.1 Urdhva Mula Madhyatham, that inverted reflection of the tree, that Mayavadis take it as this world is mithya. Yeah. So how to actually counteract such question?
So this world is not an illusion, but it is a temporary place. It is illusion in terms of it being temporary. So hence we don't take it seriously. But the world itself is not an illusion, meaning the things around me itself is not an illusion. It is a reality. You're living here, right? So it's a reality. Things around me is a reality. And like, for example, they give the example of the rope and the snake, right? The standard. So they say that you are thinking you're thinking that you saw a rope and you thought it is a snake. That's the kind of argument they have, right? If I'm not wrong. But then unless you have seen the reality of the rope and the snake, how can you consider that the rope, the snake was an illusion? Meaning, what I'm trying to say is, their philosophy is, you saw a rope and you thought it is a snake. Actually, the snake is not real. There is no snake. It's only a rope. Okay? So that's how they give the example. But the Vaishnava understanding is that until you saw the reality of both the rope and the snake, how can you think one for the other? Meaning, how can you get confused if you have not really seen both? See, like, for example, earlier I have seen a rope, earlier I've seen a snake. Okay, I've seen them. Only because I know what is a rope and what is a snake, now when I'm coming to the realization that this snake is an illusion, I have understood that it is only a rope. So that means earlier I've seen both. So there's a reality in both. So that is how you counteract, if they give that example. But simple way of understanding, Mataji, don't worry, rope, snake and all, nobody is going to ask you all this. But if at all they ask you about the nature of this material world, is everything Maya? Our answer is, it's not Maya. It is only a temporary place. Hence, it is not to be taken seriously. This itself is not illusory. That's all. Did that help, Mataji, or is it something that you were asking, or am I like totally?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mataji. Could you kindly give the reference for that example of rope and snake?
I'll send it, yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mataji. Thank you very much for the wonderful chat. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you all so much. So we'll start here now.
Mataji, we can't hear you.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I was just saying thank you everyone for joining us, and see you all on next Tuesday with another important chapter of Bhagavad Gita, that is chapter number 16. So thank you so much for joining. We'll stop here now. Let's pay obeisances to all the Vaishnavas. Vancha kalpatarujasya kripa अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय, श्री प्रभुपाद की जय, भगवद गीता की जय, हर ग्रेस प्रीति विलासिनी माता जी की
जय। माता जी, हरे कृष्ण।
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.